something from the snack here if you haven't already. Good morning. My name is Michael Stoddard. I'm the Executive Director of the Efficiency Maine Trust, and I also have the privilege of serving as a member of the board of E2 Tech. And so I'm really pleased that the E2 Tech Program Committee has been paying close attention to electric vehicles and the infrastructure that supports electric vehicles. And so they've made it a priority to have more discussions about what's going on in the state and talking about the business opportunities connected to that. And so that's certainly near and dear to our hearts at Efficiency Maine, because we're working with our colleagues at the Maine Department of Transportation and other agencies within state government that are trying very hard to facilitate the transition to electric vehicles. So we're thrilled to be part of today's program and to have the opportunity to talk to folks in the public about what's going on in Maine with regard to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. I'm going to start by introducing Eric Howard. Eric is the new Executive Director of E2 Tech. He replaces our longstanding Executive Director, Marty Groman, who's moved on to greener pastures. We're thrilled to have Eric joining us now and helping move the organization through these series of forums and other public gatherings where we talk about energy and the environment. So Eric, over to you.
Thank you very much. As Michael said, I started, I guess it was in August. We also have a second person who's also new, and that's Jackie Baker. We're both based in the Portland area, but we will be migrating all around the state. We have a new intern from the Muskie School who is starting in January, and she's from Washington County. So she's going to be helping us do some outreach to businesses and individuals in Washington County. My kids went to the Maine School of Science and Math up in Limestone. So I'm also interested in trying to figure out how we can connect companies and people up in Aroostook County, because we're a big state. It's a pleasure to be here in Brunswick. Next door is the Maine Technology Institute. They've been an active member and partner with E2 Tech since our founding 21 years ago. You've seen the sort of rotating set of slides here showing our current institutional sustaining leaders. We've got about 50 companies around the state who contribute $1,200 or more dollars. We also have hundreds of individuals who are dues-paying members. And the newsletter that went out yesterday, I think was 3,784 or something like that. It's close to 4,000 people get our weekly updates. Most of them are in state, but we're also connected to individuals and businesses out of state. Some of our members are selling services to companies around the country. And a lot of us are buying supplies from outside of the country, such as I think pretty much all of the heat exchange units are made out of state. Is that right? The ones that we're installing, the 2,500?
I think that's right.
I think those are all made out of state. So anyway, that's a little bit about us. I appreciate you all coming today, and I will pass it on to Michael. If people need to use the bathroom, they're right behind the walls here. Our next event is next Wednesday at the Baxter Academy for Technology and Science, the charter school in Portland, in the Bayside neighborhood. And so if you're free next Wednesday evening and would like to come, I'd like to see you. If you aren't free and you'd like to donate something to the silent auction, let Jackie or me know, and we'd be glad to take whatever it is. The funds that we raise from the silent auction are going to be used to do more outreach to high school students and college students to build a pipeline of future employees in the E2 community. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Eric. Also, I want to thank Christine Logan and MRRA for welcoming us here at Brunswick Landing. Christine is going to join us as a as a panelist on the second session that we're going to go through this morning. And also, of course, MTI for hosting us in this very convenient and spacious meeting room. So we're very grateful for folks throughout the community who help us at ET Tech to have places where we can have these forums. The first session that we have is a little bit of context, a little bit of foundation on what's going on in the state with regard to EV charging infrastructure. One of the first things we heard when we started on our initiative to facilitate the uptake of electric vehicles and increased use of electric vehicles in the state was, well, they don't go far enough, this is going to be terrible, you're not going to be able to go where you want to go because you're going to end up stranded on the side of the road. This is called range anxiety, and people aren't going to buy EVs if they have range anxiety. So what are you going to do about that? And that was a big part of the impetus for developing a public charging infrastructure around the state. And so I'm going to ask my colleague and friend Joyce Taylor, who's the chief engineer at Maine Department of Transportation, and through whose offices all the money comes. So everybody has to be really nice to Joyce because that's where the money comes from. And Joyce is going to kick us off, and then my colleague Lily McVetti, who's a program manager at Efficiency Maine, and we help administer these funds. They've got a PowerPoint deck here, and we'd be happy to run through that, give a little sense of where we are as a state and what our plans are going forward, and then have some time for Q&A, and then we'll go to the next panel after that. I'll get out of the way.
All right, thank you, Michael. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see several people in person that I've only seen on the computer screen, so it's nice to be out again. I would say that really since the VW settlement, Maine DOT has been in the EV business with Efficiency Maine Trust. All of the money has flowed through us. And so, usually I spend days talking about posting bridges, things like that as chief engineer. But Commissioner Van Note asked me to lead our climate efforts, so I've had to really get up to speed about EVs and really appreciate my friendship with Michael, who has really taught me so much. And I think that we are doing a super job here in Maine, and I'm really proud of it. One thing that we wanted to do was sort of brand our state effort, because there are so many of us involved, and we just felt like it was really important to start to develop a brand to introduce to people around the state so that they would understand that there was public charging available. And so we came up with this Recharge Maine brand, and it really is a statewide initiative. So the statewide initiative, we really felt strongly, and you'll see from some of the slides Lily had, that this was a complete statewide, and we've really focused on like Aroostook County and down East Maine and Western Maine, and being able to tell people if you have an EV, you can go anywhere in the state, except maybe, the unorganized territories right now, but that we can get you anywhere if you have an EV, and so that has been our focus. We assembled a Recharge campaign in 2022, and you can see it involves a whole bunch of agencies, but I would say that Maine DOT and Efficiency Maine Trust have been really joined at the hip, working hard together. And we do have a plan that is guiding our efforts, and I will talk about that. So what is our plan? It is actually on the Maine DOT website. You go to Climate Initiative, we have a climate page, and you can see this plan. We have to do this plan every year for the feds with the NEVI money, which is but what we decided to do is, because we have other pots of money, we've got some money for the Maine Jobs and Recovery Program, and we have applied for we applied for $15 million for what's the Charging Fuel Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program. We would match it with state dollars of $3 million. That $18 million, if we get it, would be almost as much as our 5 years of NEVI money. We decided to go big, and we thought, what the heck? We're a little state, and there's gonna be a lot of people competing, but we knew that some states were further behind than us, so we wanted to go big this first round and hope that we could grab some of that money. So this plan really does involve all of those pots of money. It was a little bit confusing to, the feds who reviewed our plan, because they just wanted to focus on NEVI, but we felt like this plan really needed to be consumable by the public, you know, the citizens of Maine, to understand the total picture, and so we were pretty adamant about writing it that way. So I think it's a good plan. Go ahead, it's got a lot of, the graphics, you'll see, the NEVI money is really focused on what's called the alternative fuel corridors, and we have 9 of those. We have decided to not name any more alternative fuel corridors, because all of the NEVI money has to be spent on fast charging on those corridors first, and so it kind of limits our ability to hit some of those more rural areas that we might want to hit, which we can do with this. If we get the discretionary pot of money, we can use that for both the level 3 and level 2. And that is our plan, is to use that money and kind of split it up, and I think Lily's gonna talk about that part of the plan. So this is, I think, a really exciting map. It's really hard to see it. Go to the website, you can see it, but it shows our existing level 3 chargers, our planned chargers. We've got over 100 level 2 charging stations now, 500 ports. And I think you can see we have made a tremendous effort to be statewide at this point. I'm really proud of this map. It represents a lot of hard work and efforts that we've all put in. My staff is here who, Deanna Taylor, you guys wanna raise your hands. They've done a huge amount of work. We all have other jobs at DOT, but we also have been doing this. And so Lily and Michael have been really a big help. But I think Lily's gonna take it from here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll sit up here, Lily's something.
Hello everyone, can the folks in the back hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, okay. Just give a shout if you can't hear me. Thank you, Joyce, for the helpful introduction to Recharge Maine and Maine's statewide plan for EV charging infrastructure. There are 2 key things I want to share with everybody today. The first is the progress that Maine has made to date, both for level 2 chargers as well as level 3 chargers. Can I get a show of hands who's familiar with the high level difference between level 2 chargers and level 3 chargers? Okay, great. And then the second item that I'd like to talk about is our plans for the future on how we can achieve the goals that are outlined in the statewide plan. I first want to start with the level 2 chargers. Over the past several years, Maine has issued various rounds of funding for level 2 chargers. And there are 2 key funding opportunity notices that I want to share with you today. So the first one is something that we refer to as a funding opportunity notice. We did 2 rounds. For this first round, it was eligible for level 2 chargers throughout the entire state of Maine, except for Cumberland and York counties. So these applications were due back in January of 2023, and we approved 51 projects. So that's 127 level 2 ports and over $800,000 in incentives, both federal incentives, specifically the Maine Jobs Recovery Plan Act, which came from the ARPA funds, or American Rescue Plan Act. And then also the Nature Conservancy collaborated with Maine to chip in some additional incentives. So again, in total, over $800,000 in incentives for level 2 chargers throughout the state of Maine. And so far, 37 projects have been completed, so that's 87 level 2 ports. And one project that is included in those completed projects is the Cobscook Institute up in Lubec, and you can see on the picture on the right, those 2 level 2 chargers that have been installed. As I mentioned before, yes, question in the back.
For those who didn't raise their hand before, could you tell the difference between a level 2 and a level 3?
Yes, thank you so much. So I am not an engineer. I'll leave it to Chuck and his colleagues at Revision to get into the nitty gritty about it. But basically, the level 2 chargers take a little bit longer to charge an electric vehicle. And a high-speed charger, sometimes referred to as a level 3 charger or a DC fast charger, those can charge a car much faster, anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes, again, depending on the car and depending on the battery's percentage that it's at. Does that help answer the question? Oh, great, thanks so much. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, there are 2 key rounds of funding opportunity notices that Maine issued, And the second round, because we excluded Cumberland and York in the first round, we wanted to come up with a funding opportunity notice just for them. So the second round, the applications were due in June of 2023, and we approved over 40 projects. So 236 level 2 ports and over $600,000 in federal incentives. And so far, 2 projects have been completed, including the one at the Harpswellen, just down the peninsula from us here. And you can see a car using the installed charger to the right. So just to give you a visual status update of where Maine is at for level 2 chargers, you can see on this map, I know it's a little bit hard to see, especially for folks in the back, but I'll try my best to walk everybody through it. So there are lots of blue dots, and the ones that are filled in blue are all the completed and existing level 2 chargers that Maine has in the state. And there are some plus signs throughout the state and throughout the map of the level 2 chargers that have been awarded and are coming soon. So again, we have 61 existing level 2 chargers and another 75 level 2 chargers coming. So that'll be a total of 136 level 2 chargers throughout the state. So Maine has been focused on not only level 2 chargers within communities, but also level 3 chargers or high-speed chargers along key corridors. So Maine has issued various funding opportunities for high-speed chargers, and we've issued these rounds of funding in various phases. So the first phase we did was through a competitive procurement process, which we did through issuing RFPs or requests for proposals. So the first phase, or the first RFP that I want to highlight today, is our Phase 3-1, which focused on central and eastern Maine. So the bids are due back in February of 2021. We awarded 7 projects, so 14 level 3 ports, and we invested $1.7 million in Volkswagen funds for the capital incentives, and then some additional funds for the demand charges to help with the operating costs as those property hosts maintained and operated those chargers. And that was funded with NECEC funds. So as you can see here on to the right, there's a list of the 7 completed projects. And you can see that there's one in Newport, Bangor, Lewiston, Fairfield, Auburn, which is pictured here on the left, Belfast, and Ellsworth. And the Ellsworth one just came online relatively recently, so we're super excited about that. Yes, question?
Are all of your chargers both Tesla and non-Tesla?
So in order to get funding for these chargers, it had to be a CCS connector, or some had the option to install a CHAdeMO connector. But for future rounds, which I'll show in a couple of more slides, the requirements were you had to have a CCS charger to receive federal funds, specifically from NEVI, or the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund.
So everything you're showing is CCS?
Yes.
For the level?
Yes, and there are some additional optional ports that were included in the RFP.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so the second key phase or RFP that I wanted to share with you guys was Phase 4, which was focused in northern and eastern Maine. So again, we wanted to expand the charging network to the more rural places in the state. We did this phase in 2 rounds. So the first round, the bids were due in November of 2022, and the second round, the bids were due in June of this year. And together, for both of those rounds, we awarded 9 projects. So that's 23 level 3 ports, and also 4 level 2 ports for the location in Danforth, since it's more rural, and it didn't make as much sense to put a total of 4 level 3 ports there. So the 9 projects for both of those rounds are underway. And those are located in Van Buren, Baileyville, Fort Kent, Presque Isle, Medway, Fulton, Ashland, Danforth, and Machias. And then the last phase, or a key RFP that I want to share with you for level 3 chargers, is one that we issued and awarded recently, or we refer to this as Phase 5. And this was focused in Augusta, as well as along US Route 1 from Freeport all the way up to Ellsworth. We awarded 6 projects, so that's 26 level 3 ports and $5 million in NEVI incentives, or the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund. And along with the NEVI funds came a lot of flow down requirements that were very strict. So, for example, you had to install at least 4 ports of 150 kW that was able to provide that amount to each car, at least 4 cars all the time. So lots of strict requirements about the charging equipment, as well as some reporting requirements like Davis-Bacon and Buy America. So this is no joke, really intense projects. And one of the projects that was rewarded was right here in Brunswick. It'll be in the parking lot between Wild Oats and Flight Deck, so we're really excited about that one. And the other ones that were awarded were Augusta, Ellsworth, Searsport, Rockland, and Waldoboro. Yes, question?
Are there maintenance requirements?
Yes, there are maintenance requirements, and also as well as uptime requirements. So for the NEVI standards, you have to have it operational, supplying that power for 97% of the time. Does that help answer the question? Great. Yes.
How are the sites selected? Is it an RFP on a pre-selected site, or does it come with the RFP?
Yeah, great question. So the sites, the eligible locations is really guided by that statewide plan that Joyce was talking about. So if you look through the plan, there are different areas that we've targeted, and there's different fiscal years and rounds of funding, so we're following that statewide plan.
But the specific site, so you're saying like, you want to put a charger in Augusta. Is there a prospecting process where you go to talk to the property owners and find
Yeah.
hosts, or is it
Yeah.
public property owners?
So, no, you can go to a host site, they have to be publicly available, but they have to be within a mile of the alternative fuel corridor. So that kind of limits some of where you might go.
By travel distance or just by physical distance?
Travel distance.
Okay.
Literally at the end, like measured for 95, like at the end of the ramp, I start measuring
Okay.
the mile, so.
And just a status update for where those projects are right now, we just executed several contracts, so we're very excited about getting these projects underway. And I just also want to note that this was Maine's first round of NEVI funds, and Maine was a leader in the country in getting out these NEVI funds, so we're excited about that. Yes, question?
Do these incentives cover the full cost of installation for each of these?
It's 80% of the capital cost.
And the rest gets kicked in by
Yes, so
the
they
site.
have to chip in 20%,
So is
as
the,
well as the operating costs for the demand charges. Yeah.
so what's the average cost per charger? I know it looks like well over 200,000 per.
Yes,
level 3
it can
charger.
vary a lot, and we got bids anywhere ranging from $400,000 to over $1 million. So it's
Per
quite
charger?
per charging site per bid. Yeah. So the range varies quite a bit. Yes.
Is there demand for like private industry to like install these themselves? Is there enough of a market where like it's kind of like it's not as apples to apples, but it's like a private entity wanting to open up another gas station? Like, is there enough demand where they just want to build up an EV charger station because they think it's enough of a profitable infrastructure or profitable entity for that?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, yes, there are private entities that are gas stations, and they are putting these chargers at those gas stations for folks in travel from getting from point A to point B to charge up there. These funds are specifically for public chargers, so it has to be publicly available. But Maine does have plans to install chargers for private businesses who do not want to make it publicly accessible 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. However, that must be used with different funds and seasonal federal funds. Does that help answer your
Yeah,
question?
it's just like, is there, so you're showing the sites that you helped out with, not just big, but are there other public charger stations that were privately installed that are now public, or, does that make sense?
I think a lot of level 2s, you've got level 2s,
Okay.
maybe some level 3s, but most of the level 3s are probably gonna have public funds with them to kickstart it.
Oh, gotcha, it's not that.
Yes, sir.
What about the rates, the prices, do they have a price requirement to meet? Or can they charge whatever they want?
We did say in the RFP that they had to submit what their starting price was. was. And then there was some rules about how much you could raise that price over the contract term. And I defer to Michael if you want to add any more color to that.
We did not put a limit on what they could charge, but it was considered in the scoring of the bid. So a bid that was gonna charge a higher price might have scored a little bit lower than a competing bid that was gonna charge a lower price. But we recognize that the costs of running these is pretty uncertain. This is pretty new territory, and so we wanted to leave it mostly open-ended and give them the flexibility to figure out what price they need to charge to recover their costs.
Yes.
Do the project requirements include ways to help drivers discover the sites and add road signage?
Yes. So one of the requirements in order to receive funding is it has to be listed on PlugShare. And so that way folks can know that this is an available site, and there are lots of folks who use PlugShare for comments like the station is maybe not working at the moment, and that can alert the host site and the installers and operators to go fix it or just have a status update on it.
I will say we have not been signing for the EV locations, and that's been sort of a robust discussion about what we should be doing. I can tell you, I know there's all kinds of apps, but as chief engineer, I'd really prefer you weren't using your phone while you're driving. So, you know, I think we're having some conversations. Signage is expensive for us to maintain, but I'd be curious, you know, at the end of this, if people wanna just chat with me, how much you think signage matters, because I get conversations all over the board about it, so it's really split what people think.
We want to reduce anxiety when we're on the road. See the sign, that goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're gonna start to do some signage on the interstate.
And then similar to the level 2 map, I just wanted to provide a visual status update of where Maine is for level 3 chargers or high-speed chargers. So again, I apologize, I know this map is a bit hard to see for folks in the back, but it's similar to the level 2 map in that the little circles that are filled in this case, the red dots, are the existing level 3 chargers that Maine has throughout the state. And there are 10 of those. And then the little red plus signs are the ones that are coming soon. So in total, with the existing as well as the coming soon sites, there are a total of 29 level 3 or high-speed charging sites throughout the state of Maine. Yes?
Just a quick question, I see on all of those, there's a difference between the ones that were awarded and what's online and what's coming, but what are the main barriers to electrifying or, actually having them available to the public still? Between the awarded sites, the time between when it's awarded and when it's energized.
So there's a contracting process which can take anywhere between 1 to 3 months depending on the details. Then there's also ordering the equipment, there's getting the utility involved, getting that transformer on site, and we've seen, at least in my experience, a lot of backlogs with transformer delays. I defer to revision and other folks who are actually ordering the equipment and in touch with all the utilities about getting those transformers and getting them energized, but those are the key steps that I'm aware of. Does that help answer the question?
I would say we are concerned about the chargers themselves. We are one of the first states, I think we're in the top 6 states that got our NEVI money out. I think we're the first state in the country that got our second pot of money out the door. And we're trying to beat those big states like California, Texas, Florida, and trying to beat the Buy America requirements, frankly, because we're really worried about the supply chain. Federal Highway actually is going to put, I think in the Federal Register very soon, comments about Buy America again around these EV chargers. There's a lot of concern. There are some plants that are getting up and running to make these, but they're still probably a couple years offline for their online.
Yeah, I can just comment to that. It is like the chargers themselves are like 4 to 6 weeks lead time, but it's the switch gear, right? Because you gotta go change the 3-phase power. You need switch gear, and then Julie mentioned the transformer. The transformers are the biggest pain right now. They're still 52 to, some cases 70 weeks, some cases longer than that. So it's like that plays into the timeline. It's all the equipment behind the charger. And it's all site dependent too. Maybe they have 3-phase power already,
Right.
ready to go.
I mean, I think Lily, one thing, we've been trying to have people who are applying meet with the utilities, and so that we have a better idea of what that lead time might be when we're going to award that contract, and we can feed that information to the utilities really before we sign the contract, and, you know, just trying to help with that time.
Yeah. Your comment about the Buy America or the BABA, you know, the manufacturers, all the switchgear guys, anybody with a electrified steel requirement in the product, they're not ready for this right now.
Right.
They don't have supply chains available to meet that requirement.
As I recently told Federal Highway, we had a terrible crisis with baby formula and we couldn't figure that out, so I'm not quite sure how we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yes, Mary.
Just a quick question on, sort of on the flip side of charging, and I'm wondering if you have any recent data about EV adoption in Maine and how that trajectory is going, since that has a tremendous impact on utilization rates and other important charging related.
I don't have any data with me right now, but I would defer to anybody in the audience who may have any recent data.
Taylor, do you know? Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying Maine DEP publishes like EV registration data each year. So the state is tracking it, and you can find that on the Maine DEP website.
Awesome, thanks, John. Yes, question?
What is the break point between the utility and the charging site regarding the electrical components and what's
I wonder if we might save that, can we save that question for the second panel? Because I think we'll have somebody on that panel who's in a better position to answer that.
Sure.
Okay, hold that thought.
Yes.
I have a question, like how is like the station uptime requirement being sort of enforced? And are there sort of like financial repercussions if someone can't meet that requirement?
So the Federal Highway Administration is creating this online portal called EV Charge, and all of the EV service providers are required to upload not only one time, but also quarterly and annual reports that have the station ID, they have the port ID, they have all these statistics and data points that will help them verify and ensure that they are meeting that 97% uptime requirement. Okay, any other questions?
Can you just follow up with the second part of that question about financial repercussions?
Do you wanna take that?
The lawyer in the group gets that question. We wrote into the contract that there would be financial repercussions if you didn't meet it. So we will withhold a portion of the financial incentive that is awarded over the 5-year period of the contract. So if you don't meet that standard, you get less of your financial incentive. So you're motivated, hopefully, to hustle out there and get that thing back up and running. Anyone who has an EV and drives around Maine and has to rely on the existing public EV chargers would know that they're frequently down, which is a huge bummer. And so it's been discouraging that the operators of those EV chargers have not felt particularly motivated to address those, and they can be down for weeks and weeks. And if you're driving along and you think that's my one spot to get a recharge on my way to my destination, it's incredibly inconvenient. So we're trying everything we can think of to discourage that.
I saw that the DOT released $100 million for repair and maintenance. Is the state of Maine pursuing any of that and helping to maybe start a state-supported maintenance program?
No, I will tell you, you had to be on a list, you had to get that charger on the list. We explored it, and really, like, ownership had changed, there wasn't interest in getting these things repaired. I was just 2 weeks ago at a national conference of all the state DOTs, and I'm the vice chair of the chief engineer committee, and I asked states, who's applying for that money? Not one state raised their hand. So we've talked to Federal Highway and said, you've made this program so difficult. It's, you know, I think like some of the cities will probably apply, but I don't know that you're gonna get very many DOTs to apply, because frankly, we're all out straight trying to deliver this other money, and there was so much process and effort for maybe repairing 6 stations in the just didn't feel like a good use of time and effort. I'm hoping that feds, when they see the lack of interest, will rethink the rules around that program.
I think there's also, most of the outages I've at least looked into myself are related to the point of sale transaction, not whether they're getting energy or not, which is something that, unless you're the manufacturer, you can't really fix that.
That would be our experience at DOT. It's kind of a software issue typically.
Okay, I see one more hand and then I wanna continue on with the slides.
I just have a question, and, so am I correct in understanding that these charging stations that are funded with these grants, there is no upfront expectation that they will have to be maintained for a certain period of time? I mean, not even that you won't get your money, that's just part of the contract, and you'll be out of compliance with your contract if there's ever, if it's somehow there would be a reporting mechanism for people to report if a charger in the station was down. And if it's down, then there's a consequence for the person who is the operator of that charging station. So, am I correct in understanding there's no mechanism for that right now in this contract?
I'll let the lawyer take this one.
So I think you're referring to the comment I just made.
Yeah,
And that is about chargers that were built 10 years ago with private funds, and we had nothing to do with those. So the existing infrastructure that was built 5-10 years ago is what has been performing poorly. But we had nothing to do with that, and we have no say over those. All of these dollars and all of these charging stations have the requirement that I described, where there will be financial repercussions. There are very strict provisions in the contracts of the ongoing maintenance and uptime that needs to be maintained. So from the very beginning, they understand that's the deal and they have to be kept up.
Right, so, and is there a reporting mechanism?
Oh, yes.
Like if they call
Quarterly,
the station and say,
annual.
"Well, call this number to
That's what
report."
Lily was describing.
Okay.
With all the dollars going forward, this is a relatively new element. With this new federal focus, they've created this major national central database that is going to collect all the digital information on how they are performing. So going forward, all these new large charging stations are going to be constantly reporting what their performance is.
Thank you so much for this. And final question is because I'm not at all an expert on this, the level 3 charger for, like, how quick is that? Like you said, I understand that there's a different time differential between 1, 2, and 3, and 3 is much faster, but how fast is much faster? Just to get a level set.
So that for a level 2 charger, again, there's average times, they can vary, but it can be anywhere from, say, 4 to 6 hours. And then for a level 3 charger, depending again on the car, the battery percentage, it could be anywhere between, say, like 20 and 30 minutes. So a big different range times, yeah. And of course, I defer to the engineers and the actual installers in the room if you want to provide more details, but at a high level, that's the key difference. Okay, so we just want to jump back to the slide. So as you are all aware, Maine has done a lot to install both level 2 chargers and level 3 chargers throughout the state of Maine, but we have quite a ways to go. So I want to focus now on our plans for future EV charging infrastructure to achieve the goals that are outlined in that state plan. So recently and currently, we have an open RFP, a request for proposal, for more level 3 chargers. And this is Maine's second round of funding from the NEVI funds that Joyce was talking about. And again, Maine was one of the leading states in the entire country to issue its second round of NEVI funds. So this RFP, or this phase, is focused on southern and central Maine, and we have a budget of roughly $6 million in NEVI funds. And the eligible segments are, again, I apologize, this is hard to see, and I'll try to describe it for the folks in the back, but the eligible segments are I-295 and US Route 1 in Portland, I-95 from Clinton to Newport, I-95 in Hampton, as well as Bangor, and US Route 2 from Rumford to Dixfield, US Route 302 in North Windham, as well as from Freiburg to Bridgeton. And the bids for this RFP are going to be due in mid-January of next year.
And I would just add, because you see 302, we are coordinating with our partners in New Hampshire as to where they're putting their chargers, so that we can work together on, and be logical about the placement.
Yes, thank you, that's a helpful detail. And then to help supplement the NEVI funds, Maine has applied for more funds through the Federal Highway Administration, specifically for some funds that are called Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Funds, or CFI for short. And there are two sub-programs within the CFI program. The first program is the Corridor Program. Again, these funds are targeted for along the key corridors of Maine, and it has to be within 1 mile of one of those alternative fuel corridors. So that's one program. Another program in the CFI program is the Community Program. So this does not have to be within 1 mile of a corridor, it can be within a community. So Maine has applied for both of these programs, the Corridor and the Community Program. And we applied in June for $15.1 million in CFI funds. And again, this is in addition to the NEVI funds. So if we are awarded, if we're selected as a recipient and get the full funding amount that we've requested, we would like to invest $5 million for corridor sites. This is for level 3 chargers, and ideally we would have 7 sites with 4 ports each, so it'd be a total of 28 level 3 ports along key corridors. And then for the community program, we're hoping to invest $9.2 million. We would have 126 sites with 520 level 2 ports. And we would also like to add some level 3 ports within the communities, not just along the corridors. So ideally, we'd have another 34 level 3 ports within communities. And so for the community program, these categories may include level 2 chargers at large workplaces. As many of you folks probably know, a lot of charging happens at home, but if you don't actually own your home and have the capability to charge at home, we'd like to put level 2 chargers at large workplaces for folks who may not be in that position. We'd also like to add level 2 chargers at multi-unit dwellings. Again, a similar scenario, somebody may not be able to charge at home, so we want to make sure that folks who live in multi-unit dwellings are able to charge as well. So we've selected in our application some sites in communities with high numbers of multi-unit dwellings, and I'll show you a little bit on the next slide what some of those maps and research looks like. We'd also like to install and have level 2 chargers in rural service centers. So these are communities that serve its neighboring towns, whether that's for doctor's appointments, for groceries, for amenities, etc. And again, we'd like to install level 3 chargers, not only along the corridors, but also within the communities as well. Yes, John?
Have you heard any updates on when corridors would be given or announced? That's like any minute.
No, not any minute. I think we'll be lucky if it is by the end of the year, to be honest. What I was told is they've all been reviewed, and it's gone up a ladder at the office of the Secretary of Transportation. So let the games begin is kind of where that's at.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. I was always curious about the 1 mile. Is that directly tied to federal e-logs? It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very specific about it. Yep.
We can get exemptions, and some states have been successful, especially in some of the more rural areas where you don't have a lot of choices. But we haven't had to face that yet.
Well, also, you have to know the place where you want to put it when you go to ask for the exception from the feds. And through the RFP process, we don't know where those places are going to be. So it would have to be a community where we knew we needed a charger somewhere, and we knew that it was more than 1 mile off for us to be really in a good position to request that waiver.
So just to add a little bit more detail to the slide that I had on before, for Maine's CFI application, we did some research about where there are housing, affordable housing developments, where there are currently key shopping centers, as well as disadvantaged community census tracts. So again, I apologize that this map is a little bit hard to see, but this pink kind of salmon color is a disadvantaged community census tract, and then the little purple or pink stars that may look like dots to you are key shopping centers. And then the black dots are the affordable housing developments. So there are 8 top cities and towns throughout the state of Maine that have a high number of multi-unit dwellings and affordable housing developments. And so that's the greater Portland area, Lewiston, Auburn, Augusta, Bangor, Brewer, and Biddeford. And we're hoping to install level 2 chargers within these communities to help serve this demographic, to help advance the EV infrastructure. And with that, that concludes our slides, and turn it over to you to see if you have any additional questions that we didn't get to address during the
Can I just say one
presentation.
thing? We haven't talked about medium heavy duty trucks in this, but we are kicking off, the state is kicking off a process to do a clean transportation medium heavy duty roadmap. That should be starting soon. Some of this NEVI money, we've decided in year 4 or 5 could be used to support that work. So I just wanted to put that on the table because nobody had mentioned it.
Any other questions? Yes. Mary.
Question on CFI corridor, you say you have 7 sites that you're gonna seek funding, hopefully when you get it by the end of the year. Have you identified where those gaps might be for that particular investment, or is that, where are you in the decision-making process for identifying those corridors that are required?
We've, at a high level, identified the corridors, but we have not gone down to the specifics of it has to be from this exit to this exit, so we're not quite there yet. We don't even have the funds yet, so we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
I would say that part of our plan, the CFI money's a lot more flexible, than even some of the NEVI money. The MJRP money is the most flexible, so we ended up taking some of the sites, and moved them forward into the CFI, and we're sort of waiting to see what we get and whether we have to regroup, but we're also beginning to talk about destination sites like the Sugarloaf area, Rangeley, Greenville. And so that's kind of one of the next things on our radar too, to support sort of some of those more destination Western Maine locations.
Can I follow up, Joyce? Does that mean that you're not necessarily gonna be confined to the NEVI type technology, you can apply for different speed level 3
Well,
charging?
I think that we might use the MJRP money as the difference, because we don't have to have the same standards for the power requirements. And it's off the alternative fuel corridors. We will probably use all of our NEVI money just trying to comply with the alternative fuel corridors.
Yes.
Do you plan to roll out, subsequent, like, NEVI RFPs on the same schedule you have been, 5 months, 6 months ago?
We're trying our best to get it out the door as fast as possible.
Well, we can't do the next, funding until October 1st of next year. Because we're spending like mad our funding, and so we only get it by year, so that's when it becomes available.
Through the bidding process, how much weight is given to proposals with level 2 versus level 3 chargers? And what's the difference in price between installing the two?
So for the NEVI funded RFPs, it has only been level 3 chargers. There was one RFP, it was the phase 4 one, that was focused in northern and eastern Maine. And that was one of the few RFPs where we had both level 3 chargers as well as level 2 chargers, but that was not funded by the NEVI funds. The NEVI funds require that it be high speed or level 3 chargers.
And the difference in price is pretty significant. I think, I've joked with Michael, it almost seems like a status symbol for towns right now to get their own level 3 charger, and trying to convince them that, getting something for 10 to 20,000 level 2 versus something that could be $1 million. Most people can probably use a level 2. I just wanted to say fun fact, so DOT, we have 7 sites where we have level 2s. Our Augusta headquarters gets the most usage. The Rockland Ferry Terminal gets a second, and guess what the third one is? Presque Isle, which I find amazing, and it gets used a lot. And so I think someone made a comment about the county, and I think people kind of dismiss the idea that EVs are up north, but I can tell you our L2 is getting used a lot, so it's kind of interesting.
And sorry, just to circle back to, I think the second part of your question is that in each of these RFPs, we have a scoring grid or scoring criteria with different sections, and it breaks down the amount of points that you could get. And there's some questions for consideration for each of those sections. Yeah. So cost is a key in one of those major sections.
Let's have this last question and then let's wrap up this panel because we have another panel coming.
What happens to projects that get awarded and then don't ever end up being developed? Where does that funding go, and then do those segments get
Goes
dropped?
back into the next RFP,
Okay,
basically.
and does that segment then get kicked back into a?
Yeah, well, that's what we've done so far.
Okay.
Yep.
That happened with the Phase 5 RFP. There technically was a site that was awarded in Bangor, but they withdrew their bid, so
Sure.
we added that to the Phase 6 or the current RFP that's open right now. Yep. All right, back to you, Michael.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. While we have the next group, I think we can, if somebody could help